Hey, my friends, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and we're in the middle of a conversation that we started yesterday about the second half of Matthew chapter 18, the parable about the unmerciful servant who got forgiven a ton, but then wouldn't turn around and forgive someone who owed him a little. We're looking at that passage and thinking about it in light of 2 Samuel 12, which is a passage where David heard a story about someone doing something unjust and really got angry and was like, that person deserves to die. And then Nathan, the prophet who was telling David the story, turns to him and he's like, you are the man. And David has this shock moment of what his spirit of not forgiveness and judgment means when it reflects back on him. All right, we'll play a little music and we'll pick up where we left off yesterday. The truth of the matter is we live in a fallen world and we have problems and we screw stuff up, whether it's born out of our clumsy child heart and our insecurities, or whether, as it often is, though we hesitate to admit it, it's born out of simply malice or selfishness. One way or the other, we got problems. But weirdly, right now, we are all very invested, not just in church, but in society in general, in trying our hand at this never forgive thing, at this ruthless one strike and you're out culture that we are nurturing. This is to our own detriment. And I understand there are victims and victims need justice, and that's part of the deal. But the way we go about it right now, this is not the way. And it is perilous to our own souls to nurture this ruthless unforgiveness. We saw off the branch on which we sit when we do this. Unforgiveness is a dark magic we think we can control, but it controls us. Forgiveness isn't just some nice gesture we offer other people externally. It is a transformative thing that demonstrates a connection between us and the first cause, the perfect, the flawless that made everything, the standard, the actual truth. Every time we externally and internally choose forgiveness, what we're saying is that we are well aware of our position of need. We're well aware of our brokenness. And therefore, every time we forgive externally or internally, we're not just doing a solid to somebody else, and oh, very much so we are, but further, we're renewing our pledge, our commitment to the knowledge that we have issues and we need a rightness, a grace, a forgiveness from outside of ourselves to overcome not just what we might do later, but what we've already done. And look, I don't think it's by accident that this parable that makes up the second half of Matthew chapter 18 comes right on the heels of the little teaching that Matthew 18 is most famous for. And that's the stuff about what to do when somebody else gets it wrong. It's like the structure is screaming at us. Look, if you think the point of all of this is how to best navigate other people's issues and problems, acknowledging sometimes you might be in a place where you do have to navigate that, here's a parable that's twice as long as that teaching about what to do when other things get sideways outside of you, that is about you, that's meant to shock you back into reality, to remind you that forgiveness is the currency. It is the gold standard of the kingdom. This passage, yep, it's horrifying. At the end, yep, there's supposed to be an aha moment where you realize, oh no, I am this person that wants forgiveness for me, but wants opportunities to score righteousness points when other people have problems. Yeah, that's me. I have an issue with that. Yes, that is there, and that is a serious pushback on the state of our soul. But it is also here in a proactive, positive way. Look, back in the day, the early church, it had answers to the problems in society that no other institution had. It had answers to questions about life, death, eternity, Rome, what you do with a big, weird, overreaching, oppressive empire that conquered the whole world. How do you get by in that? How do you get by in times of scarcity and famine and plague in one of these major cities where Christianity first cropped up? There were social answers that were born out of the values of the kingdom, the upside-down values of the kingdom, that were irresistible. We got to admit, the early church had answers other stuff couldn't answer. The upside-down values of the kingdom solved intellectual problems, felt needs in the early days of Christianity, both complex felt needs and very internal existential felt needs that nothing else could solve, and it's part of why it caught on. Right now, today, I think one of the things that, if we're honest, we will notice is that a lot of the expressions of Christianity that are loudest are either rightly or maybe sometimes unfairly characterized as being completely removed from everything that's going on earth and in the real world and in society. And it feels to many, we could debate whether that's fair or not, like 21st century Christianity in the Western world doesn't really scratch any of the itches people have. It doesn't really address any of those very deep inside or outside needs. But the values we're talking about today, from the passages we're talking about today, that scratches an itch. And I think kingdom citizens would be very wise to lean into this in a very public way. What our society, what our souls are begging for right now more than ever is forgiveness, is some sense of grace toward people who've done wrong, grace toward people who don't even know they've done wrong, grace toward people who think they've done right. And maybe the jury's still out as to who was right and who was wrong in the end anyway, but grace, forgiveness, this general orientation of I've been given much and I've been forgiven much, and I'm not going to withhold that forgiveness from you. That right now is world-changing. The thing that kingdom citizens have right now that they can put in front of planet Earth to say, here's a solution for what is devouring us all, one at a time, this spirit of unforgiveness that we're all complicit in nurturing, it will come and cannibalize each of us. We feel like we're safe by participating in it, but we're not. And deep down, we all know it's coming for us eventually. Eventually, you will be in the crosshairs of this monster we're helping to make. What we could offer to the world right now that is straight from God, straight from the Bible, straight from the gospel, straight from the upside-down values of this kingdom is an ethic of forgiveness. A repeatable, articulatable, clear ethic of forgiveness. Here is how you get justice for people who have been hurt, but we're all people who've been hurt, and we're all people who've dished out hurt. And despite the stuff that hurts, and despite the rage and moral superiority that we feel and that we all feel like we need to articulate in public to keep from being consumed right now by the beast, despite all of that, the end game of all of our public efforts cannot ultimately be punitive. It's got to be restorative. It's got to be forgiving. If the end game is just to be punitive, you're feeding the beast. But if the end game is restorative and the ethic of the whole thing is rooted in forgiveness and an acknowledgement of all of our shortcomings and problems and all of our need for forgiveness, then we're making a different beast. We're nurturing a different beast that I don't even think we can really call a beast. We're nurturing a forgiveness monster that will eventually turn its sights on you when you need it most. We, and by we, I mean people who are kingdom citizens and Christians who would say, I'm in on the whole Jesus thing. But I would also add to that, those of you who are here but would say, I don't know if there's a God, I don't know what to make of it, but yes, I sign off on these kingdom values. And yes, I see my own problems. And yes, I see that forgiveness is the way. That collective we, regardless of our politics or social position, that collective we has this tremendous power. We have a constructive proposal that can change the world and soften hearts and build something that could actually work, that could scratch the itch that people feel, that if nothing else at the existential level could give a grace and a peace that everyone is dying for right now, begging for right now. And here it is on the pages of this ancient book, also living in the hearts of the people who receive what this ancient book says. There is dread in being the person so unself-aware that we can't see our own problems and that we don't want our own demands for justice and punishment to be applied to us when we get something wrong. But there is beauty and life and redemption and hope and optimism in that kingdom value spirit of forgiveness. And I think it would do all of us good to lean into that profoundly and to give that forgiveness away with unceasing generosity. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.